Welcome back to the Reidel Law Firm Odyssey and Library channel. Today I want to chat a bit about our import and export compliance process. We've done some videos recently about our franchise process for franchisors, for franchisees, the review process, and kind of neglected international trade lately, so didn't mean to do that, it's just been on the back burner. So finally getting to it, I want to discuss a little bit about what we do with our projects coming from international trade or import-exports, and tell you about how we walk through that and such. So before we do that, if you need help with international trade, if you are importing or exporting goods in and out of the U.S., and maybe you got a detention, maybe you got some goods seized, give us a call. That's what we do. We work with CBP and work with you to make sure we can try to bring those goods into compliance and make sure they get them released and returned back to you so you don't lose them. And then, of course, it's always better to reach out to us before you get in trouble. So if you have questions about your imports or exports to prevent them from being seized, we'd love to help you with that too. So let's jump right into it. So our import and export compliance process, it's very similar, importing and exporting, in regards to what we do in regards to the legal side, but it's going to be a bit different in regards to the documents, right? The documents and the law is a bit different. So I kind of lumped these together. I could have done two videos, but I think it's better just to have one. So, okay, so you come with us with an import or export compliance matter. Now, typically these are going to be two different categories. One category is you are in trouble, right? And something has been either detained, seized, or you've gotten a notice, or maybe some agency is reaching out to you, BIS or DDTC maybe, about your practices and compliance, and they want to know more about you and what you're doing. So that's the first category. You're probably on the radar, in trouble, something's happened. The other category is you are not in trouble, as far as you're aware of. You don't have any notices, no agency's reaching out to you, but you are unsure of how to import or export compliantly, and you're reaching out for us like ahead of time, right? To get legal advice, legal counsel, get guidelines on how you can make sure and do this without ending up in the first category. So we have those two categories. The first step in both categories is going to be, we need to look at what you're doing, right? We need to understand what your goods are that are being imported or exported, which direction it's going, what type of transactions you are handling, if these are sales or leases, or there's a whole lot of different categories in how that plays out. But we're going to look at all of that, and then also we're going to look at any type of, if you're in the first category, we're going to look at the documents you have from that agency, whether it's CBP, BIS, whatever, in other agencies if you're importing, like FDA, USDA, all sorts of alphabet agencies out there who can ping you, right? Who can detain your goods to make sure they're compliant. We need to look at all of that. We need to understand what's happening, what your role is, what laws are applicable, and what agency regulations are applicable. So if you're importing a consumer good, say, I've consulted with someone importing a toothbrush with, toothpaste, like already, I don't know if it's built into it or it was like coated on it. I don't remember the specifics. But anyways, there's a whole special category for toothbrushes. And then when you add toothpaste on it, it jumps into a whole new category, because now that is it's not exactly a medical product, but it's like it's a quasi-medical cosmetic product. I'd have to look at my notes to remember exactly. But it took it from just a consumer good. The point is, it went from a consumer good into now it's FDA regulated, right? Now it's FDA. We got to look at those rules. We have to make sure that it is medically compliant for what its purpose is. So that's an example of that. I mean, of a consumer good that may jump into medical. If you want to go even more complex, think about software. We've consulted with folks who are exporting software. Software is fine to export. There's no ban on it in general. But if you have encryption, or if you have specialized communication applications for that software, then you become a potential dual use category, right? Or dual use product, which means it could have military applications, it could have civilian applications, and now it's controlled, right, as an export. So all sorts of stuff. And that's what's really fun about international trade. It's what I really enjoy about it. It's always challenging. because there is no standard project. Really, there is no standard set of rules and regulations. Every product is different depending on where it's coming, where it's going, where it was manufactured, what it does, how you describe it, in the parties you're selling to. There's this huge web, right, of factors that go into determining what the rules are, how to keep you compliant, and what what we need to watch out for you. So it's a lot of fun from my perspective. It's not so fun if you end up not following the rules and getting caught, but it's always a challenge. It's always different, and that's why we have our process. But any type of a project you come to us with in import export, it's going to have its own unique flavor, right? It's going to have its own unique circumstance, unique to you and your product. So yeah, we do an initial consult. We look at your documents, talk to you about what you're doing, what maybe notices you've received, or what, the factors in your transactions that will determine the rules and regulations. We look at all of that. We will give you an initial basically analysis saying, hey, this is what we think you need to do. This is why we think you need to do it. And here's our flat fee cost for us to step in for you. Now, the flat fee is going to vary widely if it's a seizure or a detention, and depending where you are on that time frame, it's going to affect the flat fee quote on that. If it's just a compliance memo, it's going to be a little more manageable, right? The cost, because we don't have to deal with timelines. We don't have to deal with agencies and detentions and seizures and getting products back in a certain time frame. So so we'll give you that flat fee quote. We'll explain to you what you're getting, what the timelines are, but it's gonna vary, right? It's very, very specific to your circumstance and place and time and what we need to get done for you. And so once you have that, if it sounds like Reidel Law Firm is a fit for you, then you can retain us. We'll jump into the project. We'll either start drafting a petition if there's a detention or seizure, or we'll start working on a compliance memo for you. The compliance memo, this is usually most helpful before you get in trouble or you get any notices or something. And in the compliance memo, we're going to lay out what your regulatory scheme is for your product or your industry. So again, it's totally different if it's a consumer product or a medical product or software or a military product. It's completely different. So it's going to be, we have a standard formatting, right, for that memo, but it's going to be very unique to you. We'll outline the tariffs if it's an import and the HTS, Harmonized Tariff Schedule codes, so that basically really our compliance memo for imports is designed for you to give to your freight forwarder or your customs broker, whoever's helping you ship it into the country, so that they can look at it, they know how to fill out your paperwork correctly, and they can get your products across. And then we can also consult on that too if you need. But so that's the purpose of the compliance memo for imports. Similar for exports. Exporting is a little bit more involved, I would say, with certain product categories, especially dual use or military. We're going to lay out what the process is for you to be able to export. We'll lay out the regulatory scheme of that and the rules, regulations, and guidelines and such. And then depending on what your good is and what category it fits in, if you need to get licenses, we'll advise you of that. And with exports, typically the memo is the first step. But if you are exporting and it does require a license, then we can quote you on the next stage of that project, a flat fee for securing the license, whether it's BIS or DDTC and whatnot. So that is, that gets you up to really the exporting, importing part. Now, the unknown, kind of that last block of a stage, is if we have to deal with an agency or we have to try and get CBP to release goods, either an export or import or BIS. Then it's kind of a question mark on the timeline, right? And we will tell you this, but frankly, if your goods are detained on an import for some kind of a compliance violation, you're looking at a long timeline, most likely, to get it fixed. And getting it fixed, what I mean by getting it fixed is to get those goods released to you. It's a lot quicker if you just give up on the goods, right? Obviously, there's a huge cost to that. You don't get reimbursed for it. But if we need to work towards getting them released, there's a big timeline. Sometimes that's taken like 2.5 years. I mean, that's probably, I'd say, average. I don't know if that's good or bad. From what I've heard from my colleagues in the industry, that's about on par, right? That's a fair estimate. It's probably going to take 2.5 years to get your goods settled and released to you. Yeah, so that's the import and export compliance process. Yeah, if we can help you with those, reach out to us, please. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed looking at these projects and digging into the factors and figuring out what the challenges are for these imports and exports and seizures and detentions. So if we can help you out, reach out to us, schedule a call, visit our website and learn more information. And yeah, I'd love to hear about your product and figure out how we can help you and keep you out of trouble or get you out of trouble if you're already there. So we'll talk to you soon.